consider myself from Columbia, moved here when I was 10 in 1991. And I've lived here, except for a little short stint. My senior year of high school, I lived in Springfield with my dad for about a year. But I love Columbia. I had my daughter, Caitlin, who is 20. I had her when I was 18. So my life completely changed at that point. And it was just her and I, my mom obviously helping. But I think to start this, I've always had to work. You know, I had to get that job. I mean, I've always worked. My first job was at the movie theater, and I trained at the Biscayne Mall and the Dollar Theater at the mall, to train for the Hollywood theaters. And I used to be the ticket person. The very first day, our grand opening, Tom Bradley, who is family to my husband and I, he interviewed me. He was the Hawk, or he was Hunter with Hunter and the Hawk, or he was the Hawk. He was the Hawk. Sarah was the Hawk. Anyways, now I'm getting on a tangent. But anyways, it was a big deal. I've always worked, I guess is where I'm trying to go. I've always worked, and then had Caitlin, always had a job. As soon as she was born, I worked at Women's Health Associates. Then I worked for Dr. Beal, the pediatrician. And from there, I went into I was going to night school too. So I was going to night school at Columbia College and working full time and raising a child. And I just have always kind of been a grinder in that sense. While my friends were just in college and having fun, you know, I had my own apartment and didn't have money to go out and do all the fun things. But I then from there went into sales and worked for a radio station here for about 3 or 4 years. And then from there, I just kept moving into different sales. And so there's a running joke that I've sold air, I've sold liquor, I've sold full websites, full service marketing, you name it. My mom, you know, I could sell in, well, I don't know if I should say, but a tampon to a pregnant woman is what we used to say, but that you can edit that one out. Anyway, I've always been in sales and I've loved it. I've always loved people. And I'm an only child. So my friends were always my group, you know, my thing. And so I've always been focused too on busy with friends. So anywho, so fast forward, and I was the marketing manager for USA Mortgage here in Columbia with Reza Abadi. And that's when Jonathan and I got pregnant. And I was I wasn't unhappy with Reza or USA Mortgage. I was, though, going to a 9-to-5 job and in the office. And all my other previous jobs, I was able to be out in the streets and kind of work my own schedule, obviously producing and doing what was expected of me and exceeding what was expected of me. But I had to go back into this where I had to sit behind a desk basically, and then found myself doing what I call the tedious work, which I think there are people that love to do that. Me, I did not. So I was very unhappy, but I got pregnant. So I gave my 2 weeks and started studying to get my real estate license. So a good friend of mine who was like, you just need to get your real estate license, girl, just do it. So I started studying for that and working on that while I was pregnant. And then went to take the test and I failed. And then I failed it again and I failed it again and I failed it again. I would drive to Jeff City and I would literally cry. And I would be, you know, terrified to tell Jonathan. I felt like I was letting him down. And it was like this knock every time, you know, a punch in the gut. Had Hughes, and then the time lapsed to take the test again. I had to take the course again. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to take the course in a classroom. So I took it with Phil Gardner, who is just everyone, like if you're in the real estate industry here in Missouri, you know Phil Gardner, that old dog won't hunt. And I took his class and I literally passed the test after my course was done the very first time. And I was super excited to get to work. And Hughes our son was in daycare. And I was, you know, just trying to learn all the ropes and do all that. And it's not easy to learn how to become the best real estate agent. It's just not. It's something over time that happens. So I had some struggles there. And then fast forward, I got pregnant again with our second son. And at that time, as a realtor, you only get paid when you sell. And so my income or lack of income just didn't make sense for us not to, or for us to continue to put both boys in a daycare. So the option was for me to stay at home. And that's when my entire life changed. I've always worked. I've always been, you know, and even before this, I was a chamber ambassador. I was in a Rotary. And by that, I mean, I was volunteering at Douglas twice a week, volunteering at West Boulevard once a week, doing Meals on Wheels once a week, and just out there, you know, going to all the ribbon cuttings for the chamber and just making those connections with so many amazing business people in Columbia. And it just got like pulled immediately. Like I found myself with spit up on my shirt and was like, I don't have the energy to change and go to a ribbon cutting. I can't do this, you know? So it literally just, it completely changed. And it was interesting. I fought it. And this is what we talked about. So, but that's me. And that's the original. And then we can go in, I think, to more if you want. But
yeah,
I was in a dark place. Also, I will say too, I had postpartum depression with Hughes, our oldest son. And I've never really, you know, teenage years are hard, but I never really felt, you know, we all put pressures on ourselves as a teenager, but this was a different thing. This was like a thing where I would look in the mirror and be like, what is wrong with you? Why are you unhappy? Like you have the most beautiful son, you have a wonderful husband, your daughter is excelling in high school. You have a beautiful house, you know what I mean? What is wrong with you? And there was something off. And so, you know, it was postpartum depression, but I got through it. Then with Theo, our second son, the day I called my father to let him know that I was pregnant with his second grandson, he also informed me that he had cancer for a second time. And yeah, and you know, I went to the first appointment with him. I obviously, because I didn't go too far because he had a bunch of all the scans, you know, and I met with his oncologist alone in her office, and I said, I need you to shoot me straight here on this. Like, don't tell me. And it had metastasized in, you know, with treatment. We were told 8 months. Without treatment, a few months. And he was not able to do chemo because of his age and his state, but I thought he would live to see his second grandson be born. However, that is not what God's plan was, and he passed away 2 months before he was born. So that was that was a huge thing. And then Theo being born, and so many different things happening, you know, in my life. But now here I am. I remember one day just sitting in our house that we had listed because our son Theo was sleeping in our closet because he didn't have his own room. And we had it listed and we had showings happening, and I'd have to get the house the way it was and then get these two boys out of the house and go somewhere with two boys. And I just remember thinking, this is the worst. But then something happened. I want to give credit to Rachel Hollis, but I don't know if we should, but it's like around the time that she came about and started teaching me, you know, we can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. So when I found myself in those anxious moments, I would stop and I would find just 3 things I was grateful for. And it really immediately worked for me. And that's where then the journey of, I can live this whole poor me life and look at where I'm at, and this is not what I had planned for me. And people outside are like, you should be so happy. You have 2 beautiful children, again, beautiful house, beautiful husband, beautiful family. But it wasn't what I had planned. Yeah. And so I fought that for a really long time. And but yet I was still trying to do personal development with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the thing is, you know, every time I've seen you and gotten the chance to talk to you, like that energy is such a gift, and it's such a real authenticity, you know, that is so great to see. And that's honestly, I think what our generation and what more people want to see these days is not perfect, but authenticity. right? And that's why when we first talked about you doing this with me, I thought absolutely, because like what you have and what you are is real. It's not, it doesn't seem forced, right? But still, like we have to kind of be shaped and molded by certain events and certain things and certain people. And, you know, that's what I look for, is people to continue to do that, because we never stop growing and we never stop learning. But who we surround ourselves with or what we pay attention to shapes us and molds us, right? And I know we also kind of talked about some of the groups and some of the support people, and like if there's somebody listening, I'm sure there is, who's kind of gone through, and I don't know where they are, quote unquote, on their journey. But yeah, kind of, if I'm sure people would love to hear some of the breath that you have about like how to pivot, and then like
Yeah.
those days when you start to feel like, man, it's starting to feel like it used to, like how do you pivot, how do you reinforce, like what are some things you do to be you?
Yeah. So a couple things I do want to mention as well is that I have one thing I've learned about myself, that while there's two sides to it. One side could be like, wow, that is a really great trait that you have, Nicole. But what was happening is it was actually self-destructing. And what it is that it's almost like a codependency. I have looked back in my life in the patterns, and I have always had a friend or someone in my life who I have tried to help. And it's almost, and what was happening is it was getting to the point where I was putting all my energy and focus on that, and there were other things suffering, or I was sacrificing my family, my children, my husband, my home, my career. And while some people could say it's very selfish, I have learned, and this is still part of my journey because I find myself still trying to do this to myself, there is such a fine line between helping others but self-sabotaging and letting it consume you. And so what I've learned is that friends that I've had, I have friends that I've been friends with since I was 15 years old. And they're still my friends. I mean, they're my sisters, right? Or they're whatever. We take breaks sometimes because maybe what's going on in their life or my life, we're just not here. And that's okay. It's very much okay. For the longest time, I didn't think it was okay. I thought there was something wrong with that. And so what I'm saying though is that you're right. I can't always be positive. My dad taught me this too. If it weren't for the valleys, we would never have peaks. So we would never know the best days of our lives if we did not have bad days. We have to have that. But what I've learned is, how am I going to use these bad days though to get myself up out of that valley? And what I've learned, or what I really try to do, is I allow to feel crappy or bad or emotional. You know, I have emotional days, sad emotional days. I allow it, but I tell myself this is just a phase, get out of it. Or, why are you feeling this way? How do you change it? You know, and I think I told you, you start from a place, but you work backwards, you know? So I've learned so many things that I used to let really bother me or get me stressed for the entire day. Not anymore. I'm like, it's even with kids. So go back to kids too. Hughes, who's 5, he wants to start picking out his outfits. I really like my kids to look cute. But if he wants to wear, you know, the Kansas City Chief jersey with his dinosaur shorts that don't match, if that's what brings him joy and makes him happy, why would I choose to argue that? Like, it's not. So I've learned to just not let certain things like that bother me. And then also, it's just the gratitude. You know, it's you wake up, put your feet on the floor, and you start your day. There was a period where I was putting my feet on the floor and I was dreading the day. And just literally about a month ago is when it all changed. And I said, why keep fighting this? Obviously there are signs. There's certain things that's happening in my life that are telling me, you know, I am religious. I do believe in God. And if you don't, it's fine. The universe, if you believe in the universe, if you believe in a higher power, even if you don't, we all know that we fight things that we want. And it becomes such a struggle, and it becomes so hard and exhausting even. So what I've learned is let's reevaluate it, and maybe it is what's best for us. And if it is, then now let's make it the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I think that's one thing that, that I see a lot in people. I know you talked about over the last month, but the idea of being grateful for what we have, kind of not that we ever stop that pursuit of maybe something else or something more, but it's our heart with how we actually look at the things that we have, that, the things that we have now and how we actually treat them. Because if we're genuinely grateful for it, we kind of treat it differently, right? It's not so much of an obligation, more of like a blessing or an opportunity that you get to have in your life. But it's not something that you can like force people to do. Like you have to have that enough internal why to like get to that place, and the thing about like the phrase that I use is, maybe life won't always be perfect, but helping people, like gratitude helps people look at life perfectly, right? And like it kind of prepares us for those down days, right? So like on those great days, and then we practice gratitude, it like goes to another level. But like on those days where we're not feeling it, then we practice gratitude. It kind of brings us to a state of like an exhale, if you will, like,
Yeah.
okay, I got this, but it's not easy, right? And I think the thing is too, trying to have that, like, how do you surround, is that something that's in your family now, or do you feel like you're kind of rowing that boat, that gratitude boat more, or how do you feel like that works within your family?
Well, I will tell you, just to be completely honest, it is more just me.
Yeah.
Um, it is just me. And I've also experienced a lot of, you live in this like fictitious place and you're not really facing reality. And I'm like, no, I am. I'm just not not maybe facing it or reacting to it the same as you. And that's okay. I'm not saying that I'm not feeling emotion. I've had a lot of like, you're not feeling emotion. Yeah, I am. I've just learned to sort of control it. And when I mean that, I mean like the like the Eeyore. I call it the Eeyore emotions. I just, there was again a period where it was just nothing could go right. No, me, I'm Eeyore, and my friends were, let's talk about how bad everything is. It just is draining. It was like, you just have to wake up one day and like not have that. And I've even had to cut, friends out that I'm like, I want to talk about positives and you want to talk about it. I'm here to listen. I'm a great listener. I want to provide advice if you want it. If you don't, I'm just here to listen. And so no, it's not really much of family. There are some things I've learned though in parenting tips with the boys. Yelling has always been like a huge thing for me. I feel like if I yell, then they are understanding, but not with these guys. What I've learned is that no one wants to be yelled at. So I just give it to them straight. We do do you want to leave the park in 5 minutes or do you want to leave now? And we set the timer, and in 5 minutes, I remind them that's their choice. They usually still throw fits, but then I come with I know you don't want to leave the park. And then I stop talking. And they're like, but I want to leave the park. And I'm like, it sounds crazy. I've learned it from someone else. I wish I could tell you who it is, but then you just do it. I know. And then you stop talking. My 5-year-old's looking at me like, what are you doing to me? I'm waiting for you to yell. I told you we're leaving in 5 minutes. And I don't. And it works. It really works with them. And they're not, they were yelling, like Hughes was yelling at me. And I'm like, why are we yelling? I'm trying to yell and rationalize with a 5-year-old. And so it's been helpful too in parenting, because I'm going to tell you, parenting's the hardest thing in life, pretty sure.
Mhm.
And every child's different. But if I can figure that out with the kids, that helps my stress level a little bit. And I've been sharing it with Jonathan as well. And he's like, and then I try to do it on him sometimes too. And he's like, did you just do that on me? Did you just do that? I know. Maybe. But it's just, nobody wants to continue to fight and yell and argue. It's just not productive. So it's been a very helpful tool in that. And I just get outside is a huge one too. I know you like to get outside a lot. And,
Oh yeah.
The boys have allergies. I do too, but we really just try to do that. The grounding, it's really important. enjoying the outdoors. I think
Yeah.
just simple things. We have such beautiful, the river. I love to go to the river. I go there quite a bit. We've got the trail. We just have a lot of beautiful places to get outside and just understand that there's more around us than whatever it is today that is making us feel stressed or bringing us down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's great. I think the thing is too, sometimes we feel like we don't have enough time to go do those things and whatever it may be, but even just like a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute walk is enough, and it's funny because I have people come to me with the same type of questions or skepticism, I guess, about gratitude and positivity and optimism. Right. And kind of what I tell them really is the things that may affect you for 5 days affect me for like 5 seconds. So like they still affect me, but I just make a different choice. So the power of choice, and that's one of the things, obviously, with this podcast that I talk a lot about is kind of giving people back the power of thought and the power of choice, as opposed to being so much surrounded by everything around us, letting the things around us be affected by us. And that is a game changer. And then the thing is, you start to get more of that energy you give, because people want it. It's like the law of attraction, right? It just comes back to you, and it's so powerful. And then you realize you feel good being good to others, and then they want to be good to you, and then it's just this endless loop of
It
positivity.
is.
Yeah.
So two things with that. You mentioned time. Something I have been talking a lot about with people is there is one thing that every single human being, whether you're rich, you're poor, you live in Kansas, you live in Missouri, you're black, you're white, you're whatever, you're male, female, there's one thing that we all have in common. We all have 24 hours in a day, right? And you've heard, right? We all do. So how are you going to spend your time? I will tell you, I wasted a lot of my time. And when I think I even said, I am very diligent about my time. I mean, we live and die by the timer, the boys. I mean, it's a huge thing. I'm like, I'm going to set a timer. When they hear the timer, they know that's the time is now to go down for a nap or something. I do not like being late for things. Time blocking time. A lot of people may not agree with that, but that is one thing that we all have that is the same, and you can't put a value on it. You really can't. So when you say too, the thing, I used to find myself have a bad day, or my friend had a bad day. What would we do? We'd go have drinks, because obviously let's have drinks and talk about how awful our children are and how our husbands don't understand, and we need to have drinks. But what I found is then you just wake up the next morning and you're hungover and you start it all over again. So getting outside and walking the trail and, burning that energy and talking it out, then maybe having a glass of wine is okay. But it is the time, so also for me, I never like to work out. And I know you love to, right? Like you're huge in this, but I, after Hughes, our 5-year-old, started with a personal trainer, and I have been working out with him. I mean, I stopped when I was pregnant with Theo, and then obviously after my postpartum with Theo. But 2 days a week, I do an hour of personal training, and that is my time. My gym does not have a daycare, so I have someone that watches the boys, and during that hour, I don't think about my kids. I don't think about what I need to have for dinner. I don't think about that the stairs need to be vacuumed. I just think about getting through that workout. Do I enjoy working out? Nope, still don't. But I love how I feel afterwards. So working out has been a huge thing for me. I used to hate it, so I never did it. So that, I think, kept me down. But I know that even just go for a 20-minute walk, move your body, get those endorphins released, get your heart rate up, think about whatever it is, you're going to feel better.
Yeah. Well, and it's just such a simple thing that, again, as kids, we'd play all the time and we wouldn't even think anything else about it. And I was talking to somebody the other day just about, like, every once in a while, I'll just go on a sprint workout. Right. And I know that sounds like terrifying to most people. And they're like, why would you do that? Why would you run unless somebody's chasing you? Right. But my thought is, like, doing a handstand class at the gym that I go to, like, I thought, you know what, I haven't done a handstand in forever, but like, it makes you kind of think again, and it makes you like feel human again, as opposed to like checklist, you know. And one thing that I do that I'm working on is like when I go for my walks or my runs, I used to like listen to speakers and listen to motivational things and like always stay mentally there. But now it's kind of just a like listen to being outside, right? And like listen to the dogs panting as we walk up and down the street, you know, and it's so refreshing, right? It's kind of like the soundtrack of life. And we all kind of get to choose that, right? But at the same time too, not being influenced by something all the time, like helps our brain kind of come back down. And that's where I think what you're saying, the exercise helps your brain come back down from what do I have, the 19 things probably on your to-do list every day, you know, but
Yeah.
the time goes by so fast anyway, like you said. So like the idea of taking back just some time for yourself so that you can be better the other 23 hours.
That's
Right.
exactly right. And that's the thing. I think so many, you know, stay-at-home moms or just moms, period, they neglect themselves because they think that their children and their husbands or their family needs to come first. And I'm here to just say my opinion, and that is that you cannot even be the best mom or spouse or family member unless you're your best. So you've got to put yourself, you have to put yourself first. It doesn't mean like neglecting your children, but what I'm saying is that if your mind and body is not healthy or in where it needs to be, then how can you even give it to the people around you?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and one thing that I heard that was really powerful for me as far as trying to find balance, you know, so many people use the word balance, but it's just a matter of like being able to pour yourself kind of equally into multiple things is kind of what I'm going to refer to it as. But what I recognized was my day-to-day job, like I love it, but I put so much of my brain into it and so much of my heart into it that when I get home, like the rest of what I'm going to do kind of gets the rest of me, not the best of me.
Yep.
And so the idea
Yeah.
of like that shift of the best of me, kind of in both places, but I knew what I had to do. And so that's why I get up at 4 a.m. And that's why I do what I do in the morning, because that's when I'm at my best. And then I'm at my best at work when I'm at my best in the morning. And instead of just like surviving through the day, it's like a thriving mindset through the day.
Yeah, completely. And I think that's the thing too, is so many people just survive. And I mean, it doesn't mean that there aren't days where I do just survive. Like it
Sure.
still just happens. That's the other thing. Like, I think a lot of people are even maybe listening to this right now will be like, well, you guys have it all figured out. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's just a continuous journey, and it's shifting and pivoting. I love to use sports now. It's like the game of basketball. You know, you got to shift, pivot. You sometimes you score, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you grab the ball from a rebound and you take it down the court, and you maybe score. You don't. You get fouled. You get hit. You know, all these different things in life, and it's just a continuous journey. But really, it's how do you get back up if you've been knocked down, you know? And nobody's life's perfect. Not one time. I think again, I'll even admit for myself, these, even like this and what we're doing for a long time, I'm like, well, they just have the easy life. And they're just obviously just don't have all of the things that I have going on. And that's just not true. It's just a mind shift. And it's different for everyone. I think also it's, if you talk about addiction and stuff or dependency, the first step is admitting it. So if you can admit that you're not happy with the way you do your life every day, that's your first step. And the second step is figuring out. And again, I like to do that working from backwards. One of the biggest things too is I always did goals. I had to do goals in my career. But what I've changed is how I write my goals. One of the biggest things I will say is how I write my goals, because it teaches my mind. And I learned this one from Rachel Hollis too, is that, so my goals every day, I have usually about the same 5. First one is I am a good mother. I am a good wife. I move my body. I am a good friend. What am I at 4? There's always one more. I take time for myself. So the way it is good mother, my kids are still alive. So obviously I got that one. Good wife, maybe some days it's just I send Jonathan a text. It's like, hey, how's your day going? I love you. I'm thinking of you. Good friend, I really try to be intentional on that. And I have like this, I just reach out to a different friend that I haven't talked to. And I'm like, hey, thinking about you. move my body. We get outside or we move, I do something. But I write it as if it's already happened. Yep. And instead of saying I want to be, or I will be, or I've written it as if, so when I read it every morning, my mind is like, you're already doing it. So it triggers me to do it. So that's a little tip that I, did not come up with, but I've learned, and it sounds simple and it really is, but it's really changed me, because when I write the goals, well, I want to start a podcast that, I've always wanted to, and that's been there for 5 years, but I have a podcast but I don't, that's a lot. Like, you have your weekly goal, daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, but or some people do or don't, but I do. And, but look, see, I'm going to be able to, like, I'm on a podcast, so I could like half mark that out. And so that's exciting. And so little things. And sometimes you shift how those goals go though, too, so it's just interesting to rewrite the goals. But also I think if people wake up every day and they don't have goals, I would say that would be the first place to start, is just start with what your goals are, and don't make them hard. I think people, when they think goals, they want them to be these huge things. Do something so that your brain and you can obtain that goal, obtainable goals. Do it, because I shower every day. It needs to be that,
Yeah.
Because then you are in this thing of like, I did that, and it positively reinforces your mental state to continue. And now you go into something else.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because I love talking about that too, because it's like every new habit gives us confidence to start another habit. Right. And so like for me, when I tell people I wake up at 4 a.m. and they go, oh, well, okay, well, I guess I have to do that in order to X, Y, Z. Like, well, obviously no. But, and if they wake up at 6 a.m., I say, try 5:55. Give yourself 5 minutes. When people say I don't have time for X, Y, Z, right? Just say, I don't have time to practice gratitude or meditate or stretch or whatever. I just say, give yourself 5 minutes on the front end of your day, or 5 minutes at the back end of your day, whatever it is, like small steps. Then if you still decide you want to do this whole 4 a.m. thing, like you got to figure out what time you're going to go to bed, right? Because that's like, it's not just a miracle, right? And so, but the daily affirmation, and that's the reason why I put it in the book every day, is because the I am is typically us already seeing ourselves how we feel and how we think, right? So if you say, I am a good mother, well, your brain's already, like, neurons are looking for what is a good mother. Yep. Not saying like, I want to be, like, like just saying, I want to start a podcast. Like your brain doesn't know how to do the want, right? But if you say, I'm starting a podcast, I'm doing a podcast, then like your brain starts to look for resources to start a podcast. And now somebody who has one and does one and could have you start one tomorrow if you wanted to, right? Like, it's just a matter of that. But like, it's also thinking about letting go of maybe what you've already like eloquently talked about. And this is the thing, I'm super excited that you even brought it up, but like letting go of kind of what you originally thought, because what you may actually have and what is coming for you may be so much better than what you had originally thought. I'm like, that's such a freeing thought, as opposed to, I made this choice, therefore my life's I'm not gonna be able to accomplish the goal. Like my mom always wanted me to be a doctor. And I just talked to her 3 days ago and just said, are you okay with me not being that? Like, cause she keeps asking me, are you gonna be a doctor? You're gonna be a doctor. Like, I had to let go and say, like, I'm doing okay, right? Like, cause she just wants me to be a doctor so I can take care of myself. I get it, right? But at the same time, like, I just kind of had to let that go. But I think sometimes people struggle with letting go of what could have been or what should have been or whatever, and realize what they have and who they are is maybe even better.
It really is. I mean, we can't discredit though those feelings, because they are hard, right? We all dream. We all have aspirations. We just picture certain things in our life. And I think that's healthy to do. But even in my example, I was finding so many setbacks and struggles towards I think if we can acknowledge those, not use those as days that I'm stressed or I'm overwhelmed or life's got me down, and use them as like almost the smack in the face or the gut, and be like, oh, okay. So, and then when we're willing to be more open about it, I think it is great. It's better. You know, I look at it this way too. I obviously love that I have the freedom. I get to wake up, you know, we do live in routine. I do believe in routine. I think that they're within the routine, mix it up, do a little few sporadic things to keep life interesting. But routine is what's best for, I think, all humans. I think we're creatures of habit. But we just have to, if you can just, it's the go with the flow, but yet be focused on where you're going, you know, and it's going to be okay, or it's not. That's the other thing. It's going to be okay, or it's not. You get to decide. We get to decide, you know, so I can just keep going and be like, this is awful. I don't like my life. Or I can be like, you know what? I like my life. This is fine. Like, this is great. I'm going to make the best of it. That is also one of the biggest things. We do get to decide how we feel, think, and react to what's being thrown to us in our lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I hope people listening to that hear that echo, and hear that in them, in, you know, their own head, thinking, you know, Nicole's right. Like, I definitely need to do this. Definitely need to at least kind of be self-aware a little bit, right? And even if it's just a small thing, practice one, even if they don't have the 5 like you have, but just do the one.
Yep.
So do you have, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but as far as like people that kind of help strengthen and lift, and but like groups maybe, or like something that people, if they do feel like you're feeling, like how do they get connected to more people, whether it's social media or whatever in the community?
So I know you told me about a few groups. I am part of that positive group. Are you talking about on Facebook that Colleen started?
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that group is amazing. And I think her reason for starting it too is amazing. And that's her story to tell. But I think it's great. And I think that if more people would join it, I think it could even take off even more. For me, I have found a network of mothers that are a lot like me on Instagram. And a lot of them are right here in Columbia. And they just are supportive. You know, they see my stories. I post every day almost on stories on Instagram, and they respond with, keep your head up, or, oh my gosh, let's meet next week and walk on the trail. Or, I mean, I was even, this is about a year ago, was at the park. One of the first times with both boys, I was at a park and it was time to go, and we had set the timer, we did it. And I got Theo. Theo was baby, so he was still like in the pumpkin seat. Got him in the car with the car on, and had to get Hughes and like climb up the big thing to get him, and then drag him down. And he's screaming and crying. And this other mom, as I'm like walking off to the car, just yells, "You're not alone." And I turned around to her and was just like, "I love you," like kind of moment where, you know, I also, before the boys, I mean, Caitlin's like the perfect child. We always say that. She's not perfect, but she was very much, if I told her no, she's like, okay, my mom told me no. The boys, you tell them no, and they're like, no, I got to find this out myself. So, and I was like, what's wrong? I would always be like, why don't you have control of your kids? And now here I am like wrangling the 2 boys. But it's good to know that I'm not alone, and that being the stay-at-home mom while also still trying to work, you know, I have my real estate license, and try to work on that too, that I'm not alone. And there's just, I mean, the kids can play some, you know, you just have to figure it out. And it's a support group. There's some I've never even met, you know, we just talk back and forth about mom tips, or again, whatever. And it's interesting because I was actually telling Caitlin today, my daughter, I was like, it's incredible because girls are mean, right? Girls are mean. Isn't that what we're all told? Like through high school, girls are in elementary school, girls are mean. We judge each other. We're catty. But I'm going to tell you that that's just not true. If you can, I think too, it's how you look at it. You know, I think it's how you look at it. But everybody that I've met in this community on basically Instagram is more where it's been at. We just all support each other, and we get it. And we are like, go get it, mamas. Like, we can do it. So I don't think there's a specific group on Instagram. Can you do groups on Instagram?
I don't know that you can.
But
I don't think you can.
But I know there's a bunch of groups on Facebook, and if not, maybe I'll start one. Maybe I should start one somehow, but they're just out there, and there's amazing other women that just want, they know, I know, we know. That's all too. I think we also want to just feel is that other people know what we're feeling. So.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing for sure, like what I just heard from you that I hope is the message is to other people too, right? In addition to what you said is the idea of competing with each other. Now it's more relating, complementing, whatever, right? Just in the sense of like, I don't ever want to get anything if someone else couldn't get what they need because of it, you know? And so for me, like I've had people say, aren't you worried about other people in the gratitude space? I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what that, no, I would love for so many people to be like, yeah, I know about gratitude. I practice it every day. It's no big deal. It's an old thing, right? That's not where we are, but like, I want to be a part of something positive that actually helps people see that they're capable and strong and significant people. And, you know, that will help us. If we all lift each other up more, we all go up, right? And that's the goal, you know, and whether it's one person or a group on Facebook or somebody you see on the trail that says, hey, you're doing great. Like just that one little thought thinks, okay, makes you think I'm not alone. I am somebody recognized, like, you know, again, your affirmation of I'm a good mother, right? Like that's what that person said to you is I'm a good mother.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is that, you know, I get it on Instagram and social media period. A lot of people, make their profiles or their, what they share to be very intimidating. I think I could use that word. They're perfect. But they're not. And I think if you can realize that, understand that nobody is perfect. They're human just as you. So I've had to go through this for myself. There's been accounts and these moms and their profiles are just perfect and their stories are just always their kids doing great and they're doing all the things with their kids and they're perfect. But they're the ones that they're like, no, I'm not, let me tell you, you know, and so they are real. I think that if you can just understand that they are, but they're doing kind of like what you do. And I really like to try to do it too, is nobody really wants to share the bad stuff. I think that that's not what we're here for. Like you said, we're here to do the positive, uplifting, sharing. And so every so often, you know, I obviously will share like, this is the poop show of the Shelbys today, but I don't want, if I was to always do that, no one would ever, like, I would be depressed watching it, you know? And when I do share it, I like to show how it gets turned around, you know?
Yeah.
The poop show can be, you know, manure can be turned into mulch and help grow your plants. So, you know what I'm saying? So I just think that don't be intimidated by what you think is the perfect mother account or any perfect account. Know that there is a real person and that everybody has feelings, but where they are in their journey may not be where you are, but they could help you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so much power in understanding the difference between trying to be like somebody and trying to be somebody, you know, in the sense of like, hey, that person's more positive. That's one thought. But in the sense of, I think in social media, like this comparison, like paralysis we put ourselves into, you know, that's just kind of like something obviously to be aware of, but also know, like you said, just we don't exactly post everything, right? So like if you go look at my page, you won't find anything that's super sad or depressing probably, but you know, I mean, you know me and, you know, in some capacity, like life happens, right? And different things happen and it, but it's just a matter of like kind of what we choose to focus on. And again, the thing I want to give out to the world is that it's not that it's anything's perfect, but I just want to try to do the same thing that you're doing. So I'm super grateful for you, spending some time, your most precious resource, like you alluded to earlier. You are fantastic. I'm super glad.
So are you. I love your sweet life. I think it's awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so obviously, I'm super glad that people got to hear some of your story and they're going to get to hear and learn and grow from listening to you. I can't wait to listen to your podcast. I don't know what it's going to be about, but I will be on it if you'll let me, because I already know it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah. It will be. It's probably going to be a little more raw, but that's gonna be okay.
Raw's good.
We, as moms, we have to have vices, and sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, cat and nat. I'm sure you heard of the mom truths, cat and nat. Yeah. It's gonna be an in between, like yours, and in between, but it's definitely gonna be raw and fun and real and positive. So.
Yeah, well, that'll be perfect. I can't wait for everybody to enjoy it as well.
All right.
Thank you again for the time.
You too, TJ. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
You
All
too.
right. Bye.
Bye.